It was a Tuesday morning, crisp and quiet, the kind of stillness that promised a perfect catch. The sun, a warm coin on the horizon, cast long shadows across the glassy surface of Willow Creek Lake. My line hummed as I cast, a whisper of a sound swallowed by the serenity. That peace was shattered by a screech, a sound that could only belong to one person in this entire damned subdivision. You. What do you think you're doing? Karen, with her perfectly coiffed blonde bob and a sneer that could curdle milk, stomped across the manicured lawn, a clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. She was the self-appointed queen of the Willow Creek HOA, and her kingdom was built on a throne of ridiculous bylaws and petty grievances. I watched her approach, a familiar weariness settling in my bones. "Fishing," I said, my voice low and calm. I held up my rod, a trophy-sized bass, silver scales flashing, twisted at the end of my line. What an absolute beauty, I thought, a small thrill of victory running through me. I couldn't have known that this perfect moment would be the trigger for a war. "Fishing is against the regulations," she declared, her eyes narrowing. "You're violating Section 4.7b of the bylaws. Recreational activities on shared water-adjacent property are limited to sunbathing and passive contemplation." Passive contemplation. My jaw went slack. The ridiculousness was almost comedic, but her face was deadly serious. The bass flipped, a splash of rebellion in the tranquil air. "That fish, that's a violation right there," she shrieked. It was absurd. I lived here, I paid my dues, and I enjoyed my community. But Karen saw it as her personal fiefdom to rule with an iron fist. Two neighbors, Mark and Lisa, were walking their dog nearby and stopped, their faces a mixture of curiosity and dread. "The fine is $500, payable to the HOA by Friday," she stated, scribbling furiously on her clipboard. $500 for a fish I hadn't even reeled in yet. My hands trembled, not with anger, but with disbelief. This wasn't a warning. It was a punishment, a blatant power grab. It was a slap in the face. A cold rage, slow and steady, began to burn in my gut. I didn't argue. I just stared at her, then at the flapping fish, then back at her. A heavy sigh escaped me. I unhooked the fish and gently released it back into the cool water. It was a quiet act of defiance. The fish flicked its tail and was gone, a phantom of freedom. "This isn't over," I said, my voice so soft it was almost a whisper. Karen just scoffed, a dry, brittle sound like a dead leaf crunching underfoot. She had no idea who she was dealing with. She saw a man in old jeans and a worn t-shirt, a hobbyist. She didn't see the man who built his fortune from the ground up, brick by brick, deal by deal. She didn't see the man who saw every challenge as a puzzle to be solved, and every affront as an opportunity. A silent promise solidified in my mind. She wanted a war. She had it, and she wouldn't even know she was in one until it was too late. I walked away, clipboard in hand, a slight, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. That night, I didn't sleep. The hum of my laptop was my only companion, the glow of the screen a beacon in the darkness. I started digging. The fine was a joke. I knew that, but the bylaws. I wanted to find the clause that gave her this authority. I went through years of meeting minutes, legal documents, and land deeds. I followed the thread back, past the original developers, past the old subdivision owners, all the way to the original land grant from the 1920s. And there it was, a single, forgotten line in a dense, archaic legal description. The entirety of Willow Creek Lake and its adjacent shoreline, extending 50 feet inland from the high water mark, remains a separate and distinct parcel, held in private ownership and not deeded to the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Wait a minute. My blood ran cold, then hot. The lake wasn't part of the HOA, it was a privately owned parcel. Who owned it? My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. More digging. The ownership had changed hands a dozen times, but the current owner, a shell corporation. A little more digging, a few late-night phone calls, and I had the name of the law firm that handled the corporation's affairs. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, a masterpiece of sweet revenge. I just needed to make the final move. A week later, I had a meeting with the law firm. They were confused, but professional. They wanted to know why I was interested in buying a seemingly useless plot of water. I simply told them I was a fisherman and I wanted a place to fish. They didn't need to know the full story. The negotiation was swift and painless. The price was a fraction of what I'd earned on a single business deal, a drop in the bucket. The paperwork was signed, the deeds were transferred. I was now the sole, private owner of Willow Creek Lake. The fine was still sitting on my desk, untouched, a daily reminder of what Karen had tried to do. A quiet, satisfied sense of power settled over me. Karen had no idea what was coming. This wasn't just about a fine anymore. It was about principle. It was about power. And I now held all the cards. But I needed to do this right. A grand gesture was required. I decided to wait for the next HOA meeting. I let Karen stew in her own smug satisfaction. I saw her walking the neighborhood, clipboard in hand, her eyes flicking to my house with a look of superiority. She must have thought I was a spineless coward, that I was too intimidated to fight back. Oh, how wrong she was. The HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a stuffy room with a faint smell of disinfectant. Everyone was there, the usual crowd of bored homeowners and rule-abiding citizens. Karen stood at the podium, basking in the spotlight, and our final order of business, she announced, her voice booming with self-importance, is the collection of the fine from Mr. Davies for his egregious violation of Section 4.7b. A murmur went through the crowd. My neighbor, Mark, shot me a sympathetic look. Just a moment, Karen, I said, standing up. Every head in the room turned to me. I believe there's been a mistake. Karen's face hardened. The fine is non-negotiable, Mr. Davies. You broke the rules. It's a matter of record. She tried to move on, but I wasn't letting her. I'm not contesting the fine, I said, a smile spreading across my face. A collective gasp rippled through the room. I'm invalidating it. She laughed, a short, sharp bark. You can't do that. I have the bylaws right here, she said, brandishing the clipboard like a sword. No, Karen, I said, my voice now clear and resonant. You have the bylaws for the HOA, I have the deed for the lake. The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. For a moment, everyone just stared. They didn't understand. She certainly didn't. Her face was a mask of confusion. Then slowly, it morphed into pure terror. What are you talking about? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm talking about the fact that Willow Creek Lake has never, ever been a part of the HOA's shared property, I said, my voice rising with a dramatic flair. It was, and always has been, a separate, privately owned parcel, and as of last week, it's my private property. I gestured to a small man who had just slipped into the room, holding a briefcase. This is Mr. Harrison from the law firm. He has the deed right here. The man gave a small, polite nod. Mr. Davies is correct. The lake and a portion of the surrounding land is indeed his private property. The HOA has no jurisdiction over it. The room erupted. Whispers turned into shouts. People were on their feet. Mark had a look of pure, unadulterated awe on his face. He came to my side, a grin splitting his face. You bought the lake, he whispered. I bought the lake, I confirmed, my gaze never leaving Karen. The confrontation was beautiful. A slow-motion car crash of her smug superiority and my quiet triumph. She sputtered, she stammered. She even tried to argue with the lawyer, but the truth was a solid wall she couldn't break through. Her reign of terror over the community was over. She lost her position as the head of the HOA. She was publicly shamed and humiliated. It was a bitter, righteous end for her. And me, I celebrated. I threw a massive party, a true celebration of freedom and justice. I had a huge, beautiful sign made, a grand, official-looking sign that simply read, Private Property, no HOA fishing permitted. I even started a little side business, renting out fishing spots on my private lake to anyone who wasn't a member of the HOA. The irony was sweet, the success even sweeter. It wasn't just about winning, though. It was about something more. It was about standing up to a bully, about refusing to be pushed around, about fighting for what's right. It was a lesson for the whole community, a reminder that sometimes the only way to win is to change the rules of the game entirely. Now, when I go down to the lake, I don't just fish. I feel a sense of peace, a feeling of ownership and pride. I look at the water, and I see not a place of conflict, but a place of freedom. It's a small victory, but it's mine. What do you think? Did I go too far, or was Karen's downfall a justified end? Where do you draw the line between a proportional response and an act of overkill?